Good afternoon. It is June the 13th, 2026. I'm Heath.
I'm Holly.
Yes, and you're listening to the One Gospel Bible Caravan. We're going through the Bible in a year chronologically, and we have a playlist already created for that. So you can listen to us kind of stumble our way through the Bible, messing up words left and right, coughing here and there. But
Real life.
These, dear listener, are these are overview episodes. We're telling you what's coming up in the next week. And I think with that, Holly, we are ready to share. Welcome to the One Gospel Bible Caravan. This is covering days 164 through 170, which means, dear listener, as I fade the sound, we're going to look at the progress you've been making, and you're almost halfway through.
It's amazing. I keep looking at that line moving, and I'm like, we're getting close to July.
Yeah.
We'll be halfway.
Very exciting. So what comes up in this next week? Well, it's about 88 years in time, and we're in parts of First Kings, Second Kings, and Second Chronicles. So we're going through the history of the kings and sometimes queens of both Israel and Judah. So what is more specifically coming up? Well, we're continuing with Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and Ahab, king of Israel, where they lose a key battle against Syria. We learn about Ahaziah, continuing with Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Jehoshaphat defeat Moab. So that's another regional battle. We continue with people who unfortunately have names that are exactly the same. So Jehoram, king of Israel, and Jehoram, king of Judah. No, that's not confusing at all. And we get to see Elisha, the prophet, as he interacts with the king of Israel, Jehoram at the time. More Ahaziah, king of Israel, and the Jehoram of Judah fight Syria. And then both are killed by the rebel Jehu. Jehu becomes king of Israel. Athaliah becomes queen of Judah. So that's our one and only queen, isn't it, Holly?
Yes, it is.
And Jehoash, king of Judah, Jehoahaz, king of Israel, and Jehoash, king of Israel.
It's not confusing either.
No confusion there.
J's.
Okay, so I guess one little bit of archaeological info to throw out in 2 Kings 3, the king of Moab successfully rebels against Israel. The 9th century stela, called the Mesha stela, describes this in detail from Mesha's point of view. So that is what we would call an independent witness on the events of the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, having taken that little bit of a tangent, we're going back to sort of the central things that we do. And that is, we like to tell you in your upcoming readings, how do they intersect with the Gospels? There's no quotes in this upcoming week, but we do have references. So, Holly.
Start with the first one.
Yes.
Satan is called by Jesus Beelzebul or Beelzebub, the prince of demons, in Matthew 12, Mark 3, and Luke 11. Beelzebub, Lord of the Fly, is the name of a god, Ekron, in 2 Kings, chapter 1.
That's for your attempt to say Beelzebul and Beelzebub. I'm no good either, by the way. But, we mess up differently, right? Yes, look at her smile. She's so cute. Okay, more references. James and John want to call fire down from heaven in Luke 9:54, just like Elijah did in 2 Kings 1:9 through 14.
Gabriel says that John the Baptist would go before God in the spirit and power of Elijah in Luke chapter 1, verse 17. What this means is partially explained by Elisha asking Elijah for a double portion of his spirit in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 9.
Yeah, there's a whole train of thought where people get into the reincarnation deal with Elijah and John the Baptist. But in the lifetime of Elijah, someone asked for a double portion of his spirit. So that's the actual biblical context. It's not that he's the same person. Elisha was not the same person as Elijah.
Yes,
But
no
he-
reincarnation there.
But he wanted that spiritual gift of prophecy. And he wanted it double. He wasn't messing around, was he?
No.
All right. It's doing nothing. There we go. We got something. Luke 4:27. And many lepers were in Israel in the time of Elisha the prophet, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian. Now, this is Jesus speaking, so he's making a reference. And you can see Naaman's healing as described in 2 Kings 5:1 through 27.
All right, references in the Gospels, ? Luke chapter 11, 49 through 51. Therefore the wisdom of God also said, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will kill and persecute, that the blood of all the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the world may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the temple. Yes, I say to you, it shall be required of this generation.
Okay, so that's Jesus speaking, and he's talking about a bunch of prophets, and he goes from Abel to Zechariah. So that's an A to Z. And he says that Zechariah perished between the altar and the temple. So now we're going to read what it says in 2 Chronicles 24:20 to 21.
Then the Spirit of God came upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada, the priest, who stood above the people and said to them, Thus says God, why do you transgress the commandments of the Lord, so that you cannot prosper? Because you have forsaken the Lord, he has forsaken you. So they conspired against him, and at the command of the king, they stoned him with stones in the court of the house of the Lord.
So the question is this the same person, or was Jesus referring to another Zechariah?
I think it's the same.
Holly votes for same. I vote for different. You'll have to be the tiebreaker, listener. Okay, caravan questions. These are just questions that might come to your mind as you're reading through the parts that are coming up this week, or if you listen. Listening is fun too. 1 Kings 22:19 to 23 and 2 Chronicles 18:19 through 22. The lying spirit is being sent by God, the Lord Almighty, Yahweh. Is this similar to Satan being allowed to torment Job? Meaning, Satan was given permission by Yahweh to torment Job. So is the lying spirit that Yahweh sent to the kings, is that similar to giving permission to an evil spirit such as Satan? Or is this one of Yahweh's angels or messengers?
2 Kings 1:8. Why do you think John the Baptist wore clothing similar to Elijah? See Matthew 3:4 and Mark 1:6.
Why would that be, Holly?
Have to find out next week.
2 Kings 4:35. Elisha revived the dead, as did Elijah. When Jesus raised a young man, the people exclaimed that he was a great prophet, which I would say is accurate, no doubt referring to those past events. Were these men greater prophets than the others? So are we measuring the greatness?
2 Kings 4:1. Debt had a familial consequences in this time because children could be sold into slavery for the debt of parents. See also Nehemiah 5:1-5. Doesn't this context make the unforgiving servant of Jesus' parable all the more sinister, as he was spared this indignity by his master? Matthew 18:24.
Yes. So that's just giving some cultural significance to Jesus's parable. 2 Kings 4:29. Compare Elisha's instruction to Gehazi to Jesus's instructions to his disciples in Luke 10:4. Was Jesus trying to impress upon his disciples the same urgency that Elisha gave Gehazi?
2 Kings 4:42. Elisha says, give it to the people. Elisha says, give it to the people that they may eat. Before a miracle of multiplication occurred, did Jesus say virtually the same thing? You give them something to eat? In Matthew 14:16, Matthew 6:37, and Luke 9:13, prior to the miracle of the loaves and fish, as a signal to the disciples that something miraculous was about to occur.
I'm officially going to say that Elisha is like potato. It's up to you. 2 Kings 6:17. If angels can be present but visible to some and invisible to others, as we see in 2 Kings 6:17, is it possible that some events described in prophecy involving angels will not be visible to everyone?
Yes. 2 Kings 9:13. Compare the acts of Jehu's supporters to Jesus' supporters. Matthew 21, Mark 11, and Luke 19.
That's probably like throwing palm branches and stuff. What do you think?
Possibility. Looking at where it is.
2 Kings 9:32. Queen Jezebel had eunuchs, as later kings of Judah did as well. We see that in Jeremiah. If these eunuchs were castrated men, and we see an example of that in Isaiah 56, it would seem this is another example of Israel adopting the oppressive practices of their neighbors, such as Babylon and Persia. And I'm sorry, it's not even a question.
It's an observation.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
2 Kings 10:16-17. Compare Jehu's zeal for Yahweh with Phinehas. That's Phinehas, right? And Saul. And then compare it with Jesus. What is good zeal and what is bad zeal for a Christian?
Yes, because zeal isn't always good, is it, Holly?
It is not. You can have zeal to really harm someone, I think.
Holly, are you just banging around stuff again?
I need to wet my whistle.
Okay. 2 Kings 13:21. Jewish tradition says this happened because a wicked man cannot be buried with the righteous. So 2 Kings 13:21. They're explaining why this dead body spontaneously came to life when it came near Elisha, right? After he had died. So this tradition actually helps explain why Jesus was buried in a new tomb, because they didn't think he was righteous. So you see that in Matthew 27, Mark 15, John 19. Can you appreciate the irony of that, Holly?
I can.
Okay, Holly can. Yay. Oh, wait, look, we're up to our favorite part, Holly.
Yes.
Here we go. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to do the harp.
I was going to say, my question isn't far out. All right, so this is a question taken from last week's questions. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. To everything there is a season, Is this a reflection of God's will, or is it an observation of the way things are? So here's our verses. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time to war and a time of peace.
I swear it's not too.
I know that's echoing in everyone's mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone who's like younger than 60. I mean, older than. I meant older than. We're gonna say older than 40.
Unless you
The
like
Birds. Yeah, that was before we were born.
It was.
All right, carry on.
Interesting question that is posed here is my observation.
Ooh.
Is it a reflection of God's will or merely an observation of the way things are? I have a hard time separating things from God's divine rule. I believe that the earth and its seasons are subjected to his will. As a result, the seasons of our life, so there's our play on words, seasons, or another way, metaphorically speaking, the seasons of our life, and that of the greater world are subject to God's will. So I pulled up 2 verses. So Daniel chapter 2, verses 20 to 22, Daniel answered and said, "Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings." And Job 37, 5 through 7. God thunders marvelously with his voice. He does great things which we cannot comprehend. For he says to the snow, "Fall on the earth," likewise to the gentle rain, and the heavy rain of his strength. He seals the hand of every man, that all men may know his work.
Yay!
Yes.
Okay, so let's make this study better together. Please pass on ways the law, the prophets, and Psalms. That's what you've been reading, people. How it connects to Jesus. Please pass on other important cross references I didn't provide. Please give me feedback on making the chronological sequence better, because it can be better. I just slightly said, hey, we should be adding a couple verses to that 2 Kings passage to make it more logical. And of course, share your questions if you wish. And what do we have there? Do you know what that picture is, Holly?
Is that Jezebel?
Yeah.
With the dogs.
Yeah, that it was prophesied that they would lick her blood, and the only thing that was left was like a bone or something. It was grisly. Anyway,
for that end note, Heath.
Yeah, it wasn't my fault. So anyway, humans, it was a pleasure hanging out with you. We will be joining you again probably next Friday.
At one time.
Probably. We just got back from being out of town. That's why we did it later on a Saturday. But again, pleasure having you all, and take care.
God bless.